And just to remind everybody, if you can pick a language at the bottom of the Zoom screen, there is a world icon, and if you can just check click the language that you want. And the instructions should also be in the chat. Okay, and can everyone see my screen? Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for joining us for Transition Tuesday. My name is Laura Knapp, and I am one of the parent consultants at Connecticut Parent Advocacy Center. I am the transition coordinator. I am the proud mother of 5 children. Several of them had IEPs and 504 plans. And welcome. And I will now introduce you to Beth Reel. Actually, you can introduce yourself.
Sorry, I have to find my mute. It's been a minute
It's been a
since I was on Zoom. Hi, everybody. I'm Beth Reel. I'm one of the co-executive directors at CPAC, and I have done a lot of transition work in the past. It's near and dear to my heart. I have 2 children who are in their 20s. One of them was in special education and went through the whole transition process. And I just want to share before we get started that just a reminder that we read at the beginning of all of our presentations, that this is a public forum and it's being recorded. So just to be mindful of the information that you choose to share. We're not attorneys, and this discussion should not be considered legal advice. In the event that you wish to discuss specifics regarding your child or children, please feel free to reach out to us. Our phone number is on the slide that you're looking at now, as well as the email, and there's information at the end of the presentation as well. And for some reason, if we have a power outage or internet failure, we have 3 people from CPAC on, so hopefully that won't happen to all of us, and one of us can jump in and wrap it up. And we will attempt to answer all questions that people have, but if we don't get to them, please reach out to us. We're happy to connect with you tomorrow or during the week sometime to answer more questions. So thanks, Laura.
Excellent. Well, welcome again. And tonight we'll be discussing the transition section in Connecticut's new Individualized Education Program, otherwise known as the IEP. And we will not be going over the whole document. It's just really sticking to those areas of transition. And if I can get my computer to advance, there we go. So who is Connecticut Parent Advocacy? So under the Individuals with Disabilities Act, Education Act, every state is required to have at least one parent training information center. We are that center. We have been doing this for 30 years, and we're very excited about our work. So we are a statewide nonprofit center for information and support related to special education. All of our services are free, and our staff are either individuals with disabilities or a parent of a child with a disability, or children, as in my case. So we understand the unique challenges and celebrations of raising individuals with disabilities. So if you want to find a parent center in your state, you can go to parentcenterhub.org, and you can see other parent centers in other states. You can also use all of their information and resources. These are several of our funding sources. These are several of our funding sources. The Connecticut Down Syndrome Association, the Connecticut Office of Early Childhood, the Department of Education, state level, and also the Department of Education under the United States. We have a family and school partnership. So our vision, it is often misunderstood that we are advocates. We are not. We teach families how to advocate effectively for their children and to collaborate. Families bring their child's history, and sharing that history is a meaningful way to establish that connection and collaboration. We support in several ways. We have services include the community support, and we offer support to school districts as well as parents. Our services, again, are free. We have several platforms of social media. We have a Facebook page. We have our website. We offer phone support and trainings. We also have limited programs that will offer more concentrated support other than phone calls. So all families have confidence and knowledge in the understanding of their own children. So we just teach them how to advocate collaboratively. And we educate and support and empower Connecticut's diverse families and children of youth with any disability from 0 to age 26, and anybody else who helps support that child. Any questions so far? So tonight we will learn. We review the new IEP form in the transition section, and you will also receive additional resources to learn more about Connecticut's new IEP form. Okay. And during the presentation, we want this to be meaningful, so please feel free to ask the questions. Again, if we need to go into more detail, if it's very unique to your situation, you can always call us for that one-on-one connection. Okay. So big changes are coming. They actually have come since July 1st. Several districts have started using the new form. So what is the overall changes? Only the parts of the IEP form that are relevant to the individual student will be included. So the prior written notice is now a separate document in the IEP. And the page for optional summary can be added if the team chooses, but it will not be included, but it's also a good idea to ask for it. And parents will have access to the forms in the parent portal as well as other relevant information. I do want that it is a new system, and there are many districts experiencing glitches and some challenges, and the state is taking the information and making changes. So it's a process and everybody's learning together. Okay. One of the newest things is the present levels of performance is it's different, and it is beefed up. The performance is identified in area of need with the source of data, which now allows 2 areas of data being used: classroom data and standardized assessments. And the current IEP may have, or the former IEP, it depends on what your student is using, what your child is using. It might not have both of these on there. It also, the impact of the student's disability on involvement and progress in the general education curriculum or appropriate preschool activities. So that's the information that was on page 4, and now will be in each goal area. So now it is intended to be a clearer format, and each goal area above the strength and concern need will now be on 1 page. Okay. And the curricular standards are linked to the goals and the new format, and will be actually on the document. And the related services will also go in the same area for the goal. What is CTSETS? That is Connecticut Special Education Data System, CTSETS. It's a new system for collecting data for all students with IEPs. There is a link to a parent portal, and parents will get access. There will be an email, it could be a text, it could be a phone call, whatever their choice is. It is confidential. And IEP documents can be downloaded and saved to your computer if you wanted to share those. If you have any issues, if parents have any issues with the portal, they can speak to the case manager. And it's a new process for everybody. So districts are implementing this and using this as they are getting into the new system. Okay. Also, the IEP and the documents will be available in 10 languages. So I just want to make a difference between the CT SEDS is the system and the IEP is part of that, and the parent portal is something different. Okay. So transition planning. So it functions the same as all of the other goal areas, and it's all in one page, and instead of going and forth between the pages. A list of previous transition assessments will be included. The transfer of rights is in a different section in its own page on the IEP form. And it will not be provided for students not in the stage of transition planning. So if the student or your child is like age 8, you won't see it on the form anymore. Before, in the old form, you would get all 12 pages and you would see that transition page 6. And it's a new challenge to not say pages. I'm still finding myself saying pages instead of sections. Okay, just to recap, what is transition planning? Oh, sorry, I'm getting a glitch on my computer. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I'm just gonna jump in for a second, sorry, Laura, because I'm having a lot of trouble chatting everyone. It like keeps reverting back. So I'm going to try to share. Somebody had asked about the PowerPoint. We had sent a link earlier via email to everyone with the Google Drive link to the PowerPoint, but I'm going to try to upload it in the chat if it'll let me. Then there was another question. I'm sorry. About the pros and cons of prior written notice being separated and why this was done. And I just had put, we likely won't get into the specifics of prior written notice being separated, but we have some recordings on our YouTube channel that get a little bit more in depth
about that
into the entire IEP, and I was sharing that link. So I'll do what I can, but I apologize if
no.
I keep chatting you directly, Laura, but I'm not trying to.
No, I wouldn't.
Sorry for interrupting.
No, that's quite okay. So to go over what is transition services or transition planning is to just to remind everybody, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. It is a coordinated set of activities, and it's a facilitated movement from school to post-school activities. And you can see it's all, this facilitated movement in all of these areas and more. This is just a snapshot. So it's always based on the student's needs and their preferences and interests. And you can, that could be included daily living, time management, social skills, all of those things. It helps the student identify their vision for the future, plan and gain skills needed for that future. It improves the student's academic and functional performance. It also aids in the student and family becoming aware of the supports and services in the adult world. Transition services for students with disabilities might be special education if provided as specially designed instruction. So another way to think of it is a process or a flow moving from high school to after high school activities. So the course of study would be a description of the courses or the work and activities needed for that student to achieve their goals after high school. It's always a process and it's ongoing. So as we go through this, you'll see that a lot of the information is taken from the old IEP, the page 6, and it's separated out into more cohesive sections. So no more going back and forth between the pages. So this is the old IEP. And this is the new IEP. So it asks the question, is the team developing transition goals? And if you check the box, it'll start generating the entire transition section. This also is to help with compliance, and it is to be completed at the annual review when the student is age 13, so that the transition services and planning will begin when they are actually 13. So if they're not age 14 and they want to 13 and they want to start it earlier, that's fine. It's up to the, it is a discussion with the team, and it may be appropriate, and often it is appropriate to start services sooner. And you would just check, they would check the box, and then the transition section would be generated. Any questions, Beth? Or Jen?
Yes. Is the parent included in that when you say team?
Yes, the parent is always included in the team.
Okay.
Yep. Excuse me, I took an allergy pill, so my throat is very dry, so you'll see me sipping on water, so I apologize.
Nope, no problem.
So the documentation of members, this is different from the very first page of where you saw off a list of people. This is it's referring to the students and to any agencies. So it will document, is the student in attendance? And this is the old page 6. And in the new IEP, it'll be a section, is the student in attendance at the meeting? And the text will appear, yes, the student is in the meeting. And a summary of what the student's interests and preferences are and how it relates to transition planning. And that's very important to capture, because a lot of this is geared to what the student wants to do. It's about developing that student, developing their independence, developing the skills for after high school. And then I'll discuss any outside agencies that are invited. And then if the agency has agreed to provide or pay for any services, the description will appear below that section. You'll see that highlighted right here. It's important to think about any outside agencies, because if they are providing or paying for services, they will provide information about eligibility and the criteria to meet that, that agency's eligibility for after high school. It makes sure that students and families understand the information. It can help schools and families identify the needs in the community resources by thinking about other agencies. Okay.
It's somewhat unusual to see other agencies coming in until more toward the end of transition. So don't be surprised if, whatever IEP your child has, if you don't see outside agencies invited. That's not an unusual thing.
Right. Usually it's 16 or beyond. Absolutely. And also to remember that you need parent permission to invite other agencies. Transition assessments. This is one of the key factors in transition planning. And again, this is the old IEP where it talks about, you'll see here and in here, where the students' preferences and interests accounted for, how was it determined, and this talks about interviews, meetings, evaluations. Okay. And with the new IEP, this is what the format looks at. It's a different format, it looks different. And again, assessment of age-appropriate transition assessments is key in all areas related to employment, education and training, and independent living if applicable. It is an ongoing process of collecting data from multiple sources. It could be formal assessments, informal assessments, talking to teachers, talking to the families, looking at their needs and strengths. It is required, this is required to enter whatever assessments were conducted, the date, the results, and you'll see a separate area for the summary of the information. And also there will be a history of the assessments. It should be in chronological order. So you'll see a history. If the student is, we'll say 17 years old, you'll see that they should have 3 or 4 assessments listed here on the date.
That's one of the things that we're really excited about, because if you go back to that old page 6, there's not enough room to record all the assessments. So you couldn't really
Okay.
get a nice picture of all of the assessments that had been done over a number of years for some kids who have been in transition. So
Right.
we're
Right.
excited to have more space, so that you're not wondering, what the school had been working on.
Right. And from what I understand, this is not limited. There can be a whole bunch of assessments, and all of this is just not limited. You can enter in a whole bunch of text. Okay. So another way to really visualize it is the transition assessments. They identify the needs, the strengths, the preferences. And then those are used to develop the post-secondary outcome goal statements in transition services. And then for every post-secondary outcome goal statement, there is annual transition goals and objectives. So it's just another process, another moving from high school to after school. So it's also important to remember when they're doing these transition assessments, the student voice is heard. It gets them thinking about what they want to do in their future. It can build that autonomy, that independence, and also gain some skills. Oops. Okay, so post-secondary outcome goal statements. This is the old IEP. And you have to, and it is required to have one for education and training and one for employment. That requirement is still applicable. And then if appropriate, independent living. In the new IEP, it looks very different. You'll see it right here. It says, does the student require specially designed instruction to support independent living? And if this is checked yes, you have to have a goal, a post-secondary outcome goal statement down here. Okay. So we're going to talk a little bit about present levels, because when you have the transition assessments on the present levels, it would go in, it would be the vocation area of what the assessments were, what the scores were, what the strengths and the needs, and then the goals were developed. And with the new IEP, and this is, I'm excited about this because it kind of puts it all together in one format. It talks about what the present levels are. And then, so you talk about the present levels, and it's going to be, remember, in the area of two areas, in functional performance and classroom data and standardized assessments. And I'll talk about the strengths and the needs, but there's also the parent and student input. And that is for every single goal section, transition, whether it's math, reading, that'll be in every single goal area. And before, it was just that one box where it said parent concerns and need, an input. Now it's for every single. I'm excited about that. I don't know about anybody else, but I'm definitely excited about them. Okay. And also what's new is the impact of the student's disability on involvement in the general education curriculum. So it's not back on the old present levels of performance page. It's all in that one area. I'm going to stop here to see if there's any questions.
I don't see any in the chat. I don't know if anybody has anything.
Okay.
I think the nice thing about having the parent and student input in each area is that you can get a little bit more specific. The old IEP, there would be oftentimes this general statement across the top of the present level of performance page. And so here you really can think about, well, I might not have concerns in the area of employment, but maybe, college readiness or some post-secondary education questions, or vice versa for different kids.
Mm-hmm. And there's also, teachers can work on their self-advocacy skills. The family can have the student with their input to say, this is the area that I need work on. This is the area that I need some skill building, or this area I do really well.
Never underestimate the power of a student statement, right?
That is for sure, definitely.
I had a
Priceless.
question.
Oh, I hear a question. Go
Liz,
ahead.
did you have a question?
Yes, I have had parent concerns, but when I gotten my IEP back, my concerns were not there. They were all in the summary on page 2.
Mhm.
So what do I need to do to say, put this, or, actually say, put this in the parent concerns? Because they sum it up the way they want to sum it up. And it's like, that's not what I said, and I get upset about that. And it's been doing that for like years.
Yeah,
They
I
said,
would always circle back with an email
Right.
if it were me. Maybe Laura has a
Yep, I
different
was gonna say the
suggestion,
same
but
exact thing. Send
yeah,
an
I
email,
would
say,
always say, here's what was reflected on the IEP. And, here's what I felt that I was saying at the PPT meeting. Please correct this on the IEP or add this to the IEP. That way you have that documentation to say, look, I
Right.
did email my concerns, and I have the emails here to show that.
yes, and that's exactly what I was gonna say, because you put it in email format, it is written, it's documented, and if you get the document back and it's not what you said, immediately send it an email out to them. And with the new IEP, with this new system,
uh-huh.
you have the opportunity for not just that one time to say, this is my concern, to have it documented on every area that there is a.
Okay. So this is not only just for high school, but it's also when they go to the next level.
It's for elementary school. So every time there is a goal, whether it's a math goal, whether it's a reading goal, you'll see this parent and student input. So the new IEP follows the same format.
And also in the transition program as well.
Mhm,
Because my
correct.
understanding is that they're not going to be taking notes anymore. You have to ask somebody to take the notes or something. Is that true?
You mean the notes at
The
a
summary,
PPT
like the
meeting?
summary.
Yes.
Yes, that's always been optional, but yes. And I would encourage you to ask if they are going to take a summary and notes.
Okay, I didn't
And
know.
you can also take your own notes. And I've always encouraged parents, if it's a lot of information, a lot of confusing things, excuse me, are said, you can record. You need to let the district know, but just let the district know, I am not going to remember everything. I do not want any misunderstandings or miscommunication. How about we record?
Okay. Because I tried recording before, because she was graduating from high school to the transition program. And I said, can you record and then send it to me? And she said, okay. So she told me to push the button on my side. So I pushed the button on my side. Just so happened, I said, let me put my recorder on. And when I told her, well, how do I download it? She said, well, that's your responsibility, not mine. I'm like, really? So it was a good thing that I recorded. So, I don't know if she said that because maybe theirs didn't go through and she was just saying that, or she was just going to leave me hanging. But I did have
Sure.
my recording. And it was, like I said, was tacky the way that they summed it up, because nothing I said was in there in the IEP summary, or maybe one little line or something. But I had concerns, and I mean, we all were talking, but you only said something that the people at the meeting said. And
Yeah.
I didn't think fair. That to me, that was like, I felt like, why do you call it a team if I'm not there? If I'm there and you don't include me, I should say.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, and that's why we encourage parents to follow up. And then Daria asked the question, what if they don't do anything even after the email? And my answer to that would be, it depends on what it is. So
Yes.
there are some situations that you've expressed a concern. It's a non-negotiable. It doesn't show up in the IEP. That is different from, I've expressed a concern about something that I just want to have a record of or keep track of, that, okay, I'm concerned about my son in his math class and, something that's going on there. Not quite sure what I want to do about it yet, but I want it documented that there's a concern. So those are kind of two different situations, and there's lots and lots of different situations in between. So For those specifics, those would be better off answered in a phone call to CPAC. But because we know it does happen. We know that emails, you know, sit and we don't get responses sometimes. And, you know, again, it depends on what it is.
Okay, so like if I'm concerned about my daughter right now, they doing what they call seminars. And it's like you talking to the kids and asking them their weakness and strength. If I'm concerned about her not being able to receive the information the way you think that she's learning, do I put something like that in the IEP in the parent concern part?
Yeah, I would, that's a great conversation to have with them because, yeah, is she able
Yeah.
to access the information that they're presenting? Because seminars for, you know, that purpose are not a bad thing. But does she have the support that she needs to access the information?
Right.
Right, that's what I'm concerned about. You know, you're saying everything's different from high school, but I'm not gonna say just her, but all the children learn differently. She may not be receiving, you know, and then she's not saying nothing. Is this all going behind, you know, going past her, I should say. And that goes back to where it says no child left behind. You are leaving my child behind.
I think that would be a great conversation to give
Yes.
CPAC to give us a call about.
Give
Because
us
that's really
Yes.
like I can think about 10 questions I want to ask you right now, and I bet Laura is too.
Okay.
So,
Yes.
that we
Yeah.
don't have time to, you know, to go through right now, but I would
Got
love
it.
it if you would reach out to us.
Right. And just, you know,
What
we
a
can
great
talk
thing to
about,
talk
you know,
about.
how will
Yeah.
she demonstrate understanding and give us a call. We can go get more in depth.
Okay, is there any particular number that I should call that, or you gonna put it in here or something, or?
It's actually my email and our contact
here?
information at the end of the presentation, and
Okay.
I'm sure we will put it in the chat momentarily.
All right, great.
Jen is on it. Jen already has it in the
Of
chat.
course.
Thanks, Phyllis.
All right, thank you.
So yeah, so these are all the old IEP with the annual goals and objectives and the transition goals. You would have them checked off, education and training, independent living, and everything would be listed here. Based on the transition assessment and present levels of performance, that is still the same. However, now it looks a little different. Actually, to me visually, it looks easier for me to understand instead of all those boxes. So you'll have the annual goal, the short-term objectives, the standards aligned to the goal. So you're supposed to be, districts are supposed to be using the Connecticut standards for each grade level for goals and objectives. With transition, it's a little bit different because there's no specific standards, but there are college and career readiness standards. ONET has employment standards, and there is the Connecticut core transition skills that can be used to help align these goals and guide. And the goals still must be written in measurable statements describing what the student will accomplish in a 12-month period, and that supports progress towards achieving their post-secondary outcome goal statements. And it must be, there must be SMART goals, relevant, achievable, measurable, time bound. And there's supposed to be a goal in the system. There's a link to goal writing template to assist educators in writing quality measurable goals. So I think there's tools that are built into the system for educators, which is exciting to hear. And you'll see down here the related services necessary to achieve the goal, if any. So that'll be also on this page. So it all flows. If you're thinking about it going back to present levels of performance, the student and parent input, and then the goal, and then it goes into the goals. So this is the area of the course of study needed to assist the child in achieving their goals. This is the old IEP. And in the new IEP, it's supposed to have a checklist, checkbox as well. It has the student completed academic requirements, yes or no. And if they have not finished their academic requirements, it'll just have a description of all the courses in the work that the student is doing. It should be a multi-layered description of the coursework and activities required to support the student's achievement to their desired post-secondary goals. Okay. Any questions on this so far? Okay. You'll see at the bottom, there is an anticipated year of exit. So here's the exit criteria of the old IEP and the new IEP. It'll, again, so it'll be a statement that when they will, it's be expected to graduate. So the expected criteria is when the student no longer requires specially designed instruction, they graduate with a regular high school diploma, or they reach age 22. The transfer of rights, it's its own section now. And this was all smushed on the bottom of one of the pages, very tiny print. And it would talk about if the student is 17, and it would have all this information at the bottom of the page. Okay. And now it's just spread out a little bit more. It's easier, to me, it's easier to understand instead of getting, that big whole long page with something on the bottom. I would have to get out my magnifying glass sometimes to look at it. Okay. So the transfer of rights happens at age 17. Approximately about a year before they turn 18, the district is supposed to send the parent information about the transfer of rights. And if the student wants to retain those rights and say, well, I want my parent or whomever the guardian, it could be an aunt or uncle that they're living with, to continue to make educational decisions, they can write a letter indicating that. Or if the parent has some sort of guardianship or conservatorship, and all that supporting document would be put into the system.
So I just put a document called Age of Majority Transfer of Rights in the chat that goes along with this, because guardianship and conservatorship is not appropriate for every student. And there's a variety of options. That's a whole nother presentation, also on our YouTube channel.
Yes.
And supported decision making is, something that we're really looking at closely in Connecticut. But one of the things that happens is when the rights are going to transfer, the student can sign a statement just saying that they give permission to family members to continue to advocate for them. And so there's some information about that on that document that I just put into the chat. And then you don't have to go through a whole process if it's not appropriate for that particular student, but they still want that support in helping with advocacy while they're in school.
Did you also happen to put the sample letter? We do have a sample letter for format for folks to use if that's what they choose.
I did not. Let me see if I can find it.
That would be great. I think that's helpful. Yeah. Guardianship and conservatorship is very limiting, and hopefully someday Connecticut will do supported decision making and recognize that. It's in the process. Okay. Can everybody see that? Because my screen just went blank.
Yeah, it's still there on our end.
Okay. So the resources, it's now in another section. It used to be smushed down on the bottom of the pages of the different resources that districts can send to parents. There's obviously the procedural safeguards that everybody gets. The parental notification on restraint and exclusion, a parent's guide to special education, building it for the transition specific ones, building a bridge, the transition bill of rights, would be the Connecticut core standards, transition standards. Trying to think of other ones, and I'm going blank in my mind. I know you have a list of other different resources.
Many of these we have at the end of the PowerPoint.
I was just going to say that. Yeah, with links.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then the Spanish resources, some of them are translated, some of them are in the process, and some are not yet. Know that we're always advocating for translated documents. So
Mhm.
hopefully more
Hopefully
to
soon.
come. Yeah.
More to come. Okay. So here's a link to many of the documents. The summary of performance, what it does, it's the student's academic and functional performance, what is helpful. It includes recommendations of how to assist the student after high school. They'll get this as they're leaving high school. Student input is imperative and should be accounted for. If speaking with the district, they should be including the student in gathering that student's input. And it is a separate document that is built into the system, the CT-SED system. Any questions? We do have in the Google Drive that was emailed to participants earlier, and I believe you put it in the link also, in the chat rather. The Spanish version that was translated by Google is in the Google Drive. Okay.
Where can I get this training from? Just click on this.
Yes, it should be, they're all hyperlinked.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
And this is our presentation of getting to know your child's IEP. It goes through the whole process of the from beginning to end of the IEP. Okay. And these are the documents where we're talking about before. So there is building a bridge and stepping forward, which will be translated and updated in 2023. I know that Connecticut core transition skills are being worked on now, so a new version should be coming out soon. And as well as building a bridge.
What is building a bridge? I've heard that before.
It is good.
Go ahead.
It is an interactive document that is for the students to really help plan with transition. I really love it. I know Beth, you love it as well.
I do. You could probably click on it maybe, right? We can't, but you could. The only thing to know about building a bridge and the transition bill of rights and stepping forward is that all of the transition ages have changed.
Yes.
So there's a little bit of hesitation to continue to share these documents because of that, for that reason.
Did my screen change, or are you still looking at the?
No, we're still looking at you probably have to unshare and then share again.
Okay.
There's a little bit of a hesitation to share these documents for that reason, but we keep sharing them because they contain such valuable information. And so building a bridge, I can tell you from personal experience, even though it's one of the most low-tech assessments we have probably available to us now, but it was really good for my son and I to work through together, and sometimes for me to look at myself, because it would give me ideas of questions to ask, of things that I may not have thought of, things to talk, so talking points. So like, Laura, if you go back to the beginning where those simple preferences and interest checklists, I think right there, like just little things that I might not necessarily think of.
Okay.
That would help, but ultimately, really, the school districts historically have used these. I don't know how much they're using them now. I don't know if there's anybody from the school that could speak to that, but this became sort of part of their transition portfolio. Look at things like, what, with all of those things, pros and cons, things you like, things you don't like, if you don't like move, if you're not a fast mover, if you're a kid who has challenges with processing information, but you want to work at Dunkin' Donuts, like those two things might not
Right.
match up. Or
Mhm.
how can we work on accommodations so that
Right.
you can work at Dunkin' Donuts, even,
Right.
if you don't
Mhm.
process fast because you want to get people their coffee fast.
Right.
Right.
And even
So,
getting up early in the morning, if you're not an early riser, you're not going to want to be, a baker or someone who has to go in at 4, 5 o'clock in the morning.
yeah.
All
Or if
right.
you're working outside. So you don't, if you're a person that doesn't like to be outside, then, going and working as a landscaper is probably not going to be your thing.
Right. Right.
So
I
it's
think
just,
it's
yeah,
what's good about that is they can take different career inventory skills or checklists that might say that they're good at something, but yet if their preference is, I don't like to get up early in the morning, then you would know, okay, well, being a baker, a bread baker, or someone who has to go up early in the morning to bake goods is not the career choice for you. And it's knowing those preferences that can help really hone in on what the student wants to do after high school, and thinking outside the box, thinking about all those added things that we don't normally think of. I don't think when I was that age, I would have even thought about, do I even like to get up in the morning? Like, do I want to do this?
and it's just looking at all of this information can be a
Mhm.
little bit overwhelming.
Very.
And that's why transition is a process. And
Yes.
that's why
Yeah.
the age was moved to 14. And that's why the age was, part of the reason why
Mhm.
it was bumped to the 22nd birthday. It takes a lot of time. There's a
Yes.
lot to learn. There's a lot of
It
skills to look at. So
There is, and it.
Yes.
I can't reiterate enough that it is a process, and what you're looking at age 13, 14 is going to be very different from age 16, 17, 18, or even beyond that. And again, for some students and many students, it takes a longer time for them to process and
Yeah.
to gain the skills. So starting earlier, um, I am one of the, I'm in the camp of let's start it at 6th grade when we do other things with our general education students. Um, so let's start then when they're going into middle school and thinking about, are they on, what track are they on, academic, or if they want to go to VOAG or whatever track they want to be on. But that's my personal preference. I know some folks who even start transition planning, they're thinking of it in elementary school. What can my child do in the future? What does their future look like? What skills that they need to build?
Yeah, and I didn't like when she got started as a freshman that talked to the coordinator of who's doing transition. And I said, well, what's going to happen? What's she's going to be doing now to get her ready? And she kept saying, well, we don't do anything to 12th grade. What do you mean you don't do anything to 12th grade? We talked about this at 8th grade, IEP, so you're going to wait to 12th grade? Why talk about it in 8th grade, the last year, and then you tell me you only do something at 12th grade. So I
Right.
think she didn't need to be in that position because when they did at her senior year, they did this cart and they were selling stuff to the staff. I think you should have started that way, way before the 12th.
Mhm.
Give them time
Right.
to process, time to learn how
Okay.
to be prepared when you go into the transaction. Not the transaction, the
The transition program.
yeah. Yeah, correct.
Right. So I'm going back to thinking about when we do student success plans in 6th grade. That's really, you're talking about the future. So,
Right.
and again, each student is different. They process differently. They acquire skills differently. And I think for districts before the age was 16, so it wasn't in their, they weren't really thinking about it until, that 10th, 11th grade. Whereas now they need to start thinking about it earlier.
Yes.
which makes sense, and it always made sense. It never made sense when they changed it from 14 years ago to 16, because in 8th grade is when you're planning, where am I going to go to high school?
Right.
What kinds of programs? We have so many different kinds of schools available to
Mhm.
kids
Yes.
for different purposes and different focus. And we're not thinking about that using the transition lens until they
Right.
turn at that time, 16. So now it makes sense.
Right, it does. Think
To many of
you don't
us.
you don't traditionally think of it as transition, but yet really that's what you're doing in 8th grade when you're thinking, am I going to go to a tech school? Do I want to go to a VOAG program? Do I want to go to college? And you're talking to the school's guidance counselors about what classes to take. That's all transition planning.
Mhm.
We don't call it that, but it is.
So we have a question, Laura.
Yes.
Do you have similar resources for 504 plan middle school, high school students and their parents, please? 3 kids, 2 with 504s and 1 with an IEP. Need help. Ruth,
Give
are
us-
you referring to the building a bridge and that sort of thing? You can unmute. Yes, yes,
Yes.
she is.
Okay. Not ex-
I'm so sorry, ladies. Good evening. This is Ruth. I posted those questions. Yes, I was just wondering about like resources for, like documents and the building a bridge and the stepping forward, move to 14. So I have 2 8th graders with one with IEP and one with 504. Neither of them they hate school. They don't do well. And then I have a 11th grade daughter with 504 as well, and she's starting to slip back in her grades and she started not doing very well.
there is, so with 504 plans, it's different because they're not providing specialized instruction. It's based on a student's disability and providing accommodations. So they do need to look at access and providing those accommodations. And there is some documentation, but it's not specifically a building a bridge or things like that. But that doesn't mean you can't use those documents.
Mhm. Right, but the law is different.
Yes,
Right.
yes.
So I do want to share that I was at a federal conference a few weeks ago, and they brought this up because people on 504 plans don't have transition built in, and the federal government is looking at changing that because they
And
really do recognize the problem.
I've actually I'm going to launch the poll. We're going to launch a quick poll while we're having the question and answer session. And if you can just answer the questions, it just helps us plan it and improve.
Ruth, the other thing I heard you saying though is that they're struggling, and that might be a deeper conversation of what's happening there.
Right.
Is 504 really the right place for them to be? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Are the plans being followed? Do they have the right? Like, there's a lot of questions in what you just said.
I'm thinking
Yeah.
there's several questions that I would be asking, what interventions, but I have had a student on a 504 plan that actually did get some sort of transition services. They switched it up. Not impossible, but they
Not super
some
common,
districts.
but yeah.
No.
Pat says, Laura, you mentioned the student success plan briefly. Perhaps that is something parents can ask about at their 504 meetings and at PPTs. Definitely.
Definitely.
No, I'm sorry, what is that?
The student success plan.
I missed the beginning of the presentation. I'm sorry if it was there.
That's okay. That's okay.
I'm trying to remember the context that you talked about.
I talked about transition, for me personally, when we're talking about transition planning so student success plans, it's a regular education process where they start looking at what the student is doing, looking at the future. It's really, you can really tie transition planning into that. That's really kind of what we're doing as we're going into middle school and on through 10th, 11th, 12th grade. We're looking at how that student is going to succeed. What is needed? Well, how are they doing? Looking at their performance. It just makes logical sense to me. That's
right. You had tied it back to planning earlier.
Yes.
Yeah. And so Pat saying, if you're talking about student success plan and planning for the future, you can do that at a younger age. I mean, you can do it at a younger age anyway, but
yes,
it's something that kind of helps you. It's a tool that can help.
And Beth, I'm sorry, is that something that you can ask, that transition plan, you can officially ask and get hopefully for both 504 and IEP plans, or?
Student success plan, like Laura said, is a general ed
All students.
initiative. Yeah, so all students
students.
have one.
Mm.
Yeah, so it's not specific to kids with 504s and and PPT and IEPs. But it is a tool that we can ask about, because it is looking at what is that student going to do to support their future.
Is there, so you just ask for that specifically? May I have, I'd like to have a student success plan, student success plan for whatever, my daughter or.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
what people are asking, and Laura, correct me if I'm wrong, because I know things evolve, and I don't do as many calls as I used to. So what people were asking is, where can I find it? What does it look like? Because different districts were doing different things. It wasn't like a document that said student success plan. It was within a variety of things, like the computer programs, which I'm blanking on, the portals.
The portals, right. And actually, the student success plan is posted in the chat. A link to it.
Link, I just got that. Is that portal, Connecticut.gov,
Yes.
that link?
Thanks, Jen.
Thank you.
Are there any tools like building a bridge specific to help ease a transitioning from an outplacement day school to a residential program? I have a 12-year-old and she's in 7th with an IEP.
That's a really good question. I think we're gonna have to research that a little bit.
The residential school program. Yeah, I don't know of any specifically. I know that, you know, using those tools can be helpful to everybody, but to specifically focus on that, good question.
That's a really good question. I know there should be, so the student is going from a outplacement to, day to a residential. There should be a plan of how to integrate that student into the residential, depending on if they don't accept change well. You know, it should be a graduated process, a slow process, depending on the student need. I have lots of questions in my head about that. So if you want to reach out, we can chat about what the process is. There should be a thoughtful process though.
Yeah, and the other thing I'm thinking about too is outplacement can be really wonderful for transition, and outplacements can be, transition can be a little non-existent sometimes. So those are really good questions to ask. What do they do? How do they work on those things? I mean, sometimes the transition itself into the outplacement is the focus, and transition to adult life stuff might take a little bit of a backseat, but it's questions to ask what they do and how they look at it. Pat says school counselors should have more knowledge about the students'
They should.
success plan. Yes.
Should.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Now, I was talking about my daughter doing the seminar thing. What if I don't think that's good for her and she needs to be in an outplacement program? How would I go about that?
That's definitely larger discussion.
That is yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead, Laura.
I was just, a chat popped up, so I was multitasking, which you were
Okay.
in your brain. So my immediate thought is it's a process for outplacement and it's a deeper conversation, but why is the current program not working? What does she need? So it's not, I don't like it. I don't like what you're doing. We're not in agreement. I want an outplacement. There's more to it than that. So
you need proof, in other words.
Yes, in progress, and it's definitely a deeper conversation.
Okay, all right.
I don't want to. So it's hard to answer it without knowing more specifics.
I understand.
Yeah, I mean, looking at appropriateness of a program is really, there's a lot of pieces to that conversation. It's really based on the individual student, and not every program is appropriate for every student. So that's definitely a big conversation.
Right.
Okay.
Donna says, I'm at a Capella U school counseling intern. Yes, you are correct about school counselors' knowledge about student success plan with Naviance. Naviance was what I was trying to come up with.
Yes.
Computer program beginning in the 6th grade. Thank you, Donna. That's really helpful. Yeah. And Jen reposted the phone number. And there was a question about the video being posted on YouTube. So yes, this will be edited and uploaded in a couple of days. For those of you who might have, I know some people came in at a variety of different times, so you can watch the whole thing.
Great. Any other questions?
Quick question, ladies. When you say YouTube, is that going to be, the link is going to be emailed to us or something, or will we go to CPAC's website and see the video the link to YouTube for the presentation?
That is a technical question, and I believe it's emailed, but don't quote me on that.
Okay.
Is it emailed, Beth? Yes.
Yeah, we are trying to get back to emailing them out to people. We had a little hiatus there. So
It will be posted to this playlist.
yes, so there's a trend that Jen just posted that link. There's a Transition Tuesday playlist, right?
Correct.
Yes.
Transition to.
So every time we do one of these presentations, every time Laura does one of these presentations, we upload it to that playlist. So it's a good place to go, even just to look and scroll through, because one of the things we were talking about tonight was transition assessments, and Pat Anderson, who was on here, did that presentation. And Jen posted one about, I can't remember what the one that
Was it supported decision making? We had a presentation about supported decision making and public benefits. Yes, all that stuff.
Yeah. So all of these areas that we focus in on, that are whole presentation in themselves are there. So we will hopefully get the link out to everybody. I hope to have that system worked out actually very soon. Technology has its own set of
Rules.
challenges. Yeah, exactly.
I'm definitely, I have technical difficulties all the time. So.
Any other questions?
This was good, even though I missed the first half.
Good. I'm glad you found it helpful.
Yeah.
Fabulous. Really, really helpful. Thank you. Very supportive too.
Thank you.
So when I call this 860 number, who am I asking for?
You can ask for me.
Jennifer?
No, I'm Laura.
Laura?
Sorry, I forgot my name. I'm so sorry. I thought my name was up there. You didn't tell me.
And that's Laura, you said, right?
Yes.
Right. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. There, now you can see my name.
Yes. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right.
All right. Thank you, everybody. You have a wonderful evening.
You do.
Night, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.